Hi, Eric. So this is exciting. It's so warm. I wanted to stay. It was good. Yeah. Oh, my hair. I didn't sleep at all last night. I was afraid I would. I got about an hour. Good night, yes. The year went I had just started coming to the temple last December.
Some of them,
Maybe give me one. I think maybe one for like the not enough for every few should have it. Yeah. All right. Oops, I stepped on the wire. Hi guys, it's really great to have you all here. I think we have Beth on Zoom with us. I'm really glad to welcome you to the fifth lecture called Journeys of the Soul. Key announcements before we begin. One, this morning we were very happy to accept Frank Valenti into the Jewish faith. After a year of being studying here as a conversion candidate, Frank has been to the mikveh this morning, and it was a wonderful moment.
Yes.
And your Hebrew name is Baruch.
Yes.
And we're very happy and proud and lucky to have you. Thank you. There'll also be, everybody's invited this Friday at 6 p.m. for the service where we're gonna do a communal celebration in honor of Frank, and I believe Frank is bringing Italian food afterwards, something, right?
Yeah.
Because you can become, you can become Jewish, but you can't take away the Italian out of the Italian, right? So that's great, and I'm really happy, Frank, to see you here this evening, as I was happy to see you this morning, and welcome again to the Jewish people.
Thank you.
Feel like you've been with us forever, but it's like now it's official, right? So that's number one. Number two, this is a 5th out of 6 classes this mini-mester. After that, for the month of February, we will be on break from Adult Ed at Temple Sinai. However, beginning in March, there's going to be a very exciting 3rd mini-mester to this ROSH-ESTHER track. We have usually 6 sessions, and this time it's going to be divided into 2 parts. This afternoon, we have confirmed that the first half is going to be Native American, indigenous people, spirituality. There's a woman whose first name is Trish and her last name escapes me right now, but she's lovely, and we met this morning, and she is indigenous, and she will be teaching us about 3 sessions about their spiritual perspectives. I'm being careful because I don't want to say any word that might be, like a cultural colonialism or anything like that. So she will teach the words that she understands, that what it is for them to, all those things that we're trying to do. But I think it's going to be a fascinating. I had a discussion with her this afternoon, and I'm grateful to our congregant Nancy Krause who connected us. So that will be an opportunity to kind of expand our horizons and our depth beyond our own faith, which I think is really important. It's okay to know what one's faith is and to deepen the roots in your own, but then from that position to also reach out and to expand and explore. And then similarly, the second session, three meetings will be Far Eastern religions. There is a professor at U of R. His name is Douglas Brook. And he's amazing. I actually attended some of his lectures on the Mahabharata on Zoom, and did he give a lecture here yet? No, he did not. But he will be teaching us about Indian religions, Chinese, so spirituality. Again, only 3 sessions. That's not a lot, but it's something to explore, and that'll be I think so. I'm looking forward to a kind of like a multicultural. Beautiful third semester, and I hope you all enroll and bring friends, and there'll be publicity to that, so come enroll and bring a friend. Then for the 4th semester, that's in a while, in May or late April, whatever, I'll be coming back with another session on Kabbalah from a different perspective than the soul. There will be a Thursday morning class about Talmud again in the next semester as well. Another, and it's all on the website, and you should be getting information about all those classes. Another announcement that is very exciting to me is that on February 10th, that's a Tuesday actually, we will have here a visit from 2 people from the land of Israel. In fact, a Jew and an Arab. So a rabbi and an Arab Orthodox priest, who both of them have succeeded me in as a directors and co-director of the Spirit of the Galilee, which is the dialogue shared society initiative that I was leading in the Galilee prior to me coming here. And they're coming to the United States. They will be in New York and New York City and Boston, fundraising and whatever. And I said, you know what, you got to come to Rochester as well. So they are. Their visit here will be for a few days. They'll be meeting different groups here, but interfaith community here and rabbis, board of rabbis. But there'll be some dinners and lunches that we're organizing. There will be a broad community event. We'll invite everyone who wants to come on Tuesday evening, 7 to 9. Well, they'll be talking, presenting the really, really important work that they're doing to bring Jews and Arabs together in Israel now through interfaith work, through communities coming together. It's really a very unique thing, I know, because I used to do that. But they've done since I left, it only got better, like in the sense that they're doing a great job. And I really invite anyone who's interested in that to come, because it's really worthwhile to hear them. They're also, both of them actually are also musicians. He sings in the Arab Greek Orthodox chant tradition. It's amazing to hear him sing, and she sings Jewish music, and they'll be sharing some music and sharing about what they do and how they've dealt with the past few years there that, as you know, have been challenging to people who believe in peace and dialogue and equality. And so I encourage all of you to enroll and bring friends to that. It's, again, February 10th from 7 p.m. here at Temple. There'll be some light refreshments or whatever. So that is also a warm invitation. Yeah, enough announcements. I could go on and on. There's a lot going on, but I want us to have the possibility to learn together. So what we've been doing so far is that we have been mostly looking at Kabbalistic texts from the Zohar that kind of like they allow us to have a certain vision or understanding in depth of these Kabbalists' understanding of what the soul is, what its purpose is, where does it come from, where does it go, what what might be some of its components, like the one that we read last week that taught us that the soul actually has different levels, some that are more connected to our bodily actions and how we act in the world, some that are more maybe intellectual or consciousness level, and then the third one called neshama, that is basically geared towards our relation with God, with the divine, whatever you want to call it, source, you name it, right? All these are English words. In Judaism, we have 70 different names for the divine, 70. None of them is God or source or divine, right? These are all English names. So what is it that we call that, right? So this understanding that we can walk upon this earth, but part of who we are is, at least potentially so, always geared towards having a relationship with that, with everything that we do or think or say, right? That is kind of like, that is kind of the message. And how can the more, I don't know, daily function of who we are, how we operate in the world, can be in connection with that, right? Because for the purpose of the argument, let's assume that does exist, right? How do we maintain a life in which we are connected to that contact that we can make and have with the divine, and remember it and bring presence to it as we live? Yeah, that's kind of like the question or the challenge of these texts posed to us as we read them, right? So it's not just a theoretical lecture. It's please do try this at home kind of exercise, right? And again, and it's not hierarchical in the sense that bodily functions low, connection with the divine high, good, bad. It's not about that, right? These texts are very holistic, and we spoke about this last week, right? When we kind of said it's all one unit. They're, on the one hand, they're different levels, but then also similarly, it all comes together. You can't really, just like in a candle, right? In the flame, you see that there are different parts in the flame, but it's really just one flame, right? How do we integrate all of those? So our body, our heart, our mind, and then our spiritual connection to the divine, how does it all align? That is the spiritual challenge that is being brought to us by these texts. And each and every one of us is free to do with this as we want, right? We can say, oh, this is just a nice cultural experience, or you can say, oh, this is something that I can work with. It could be transformative to how I live, right? And notice, what do I need to do to be more connected? When do I lose this connection? What kind of choices that I make in life help me just bring forth this connection? What kind of choices that I make in life that make me disconnected, right? And those are, so that these can become also a guideline for life. It doesn't have to remain in the theoretical level. In fact, I believe the reason why these texts have been taught and taught and taught again and read for generations, because many people have found value to them. But they say, oh, this kind of perspective helps me, aligns me, connects me, right? And then in that way they've been inspirational. They're considered holy, sacred, because not necessarily because of the source. You've asked about their source before, right? Not necessarily because of the source of who created them, because we don't, again, these texts are written by anonymous people. We don't know who they are, who they were. But because people have felt the impact of those texts and said, oh, that's helpful to us, right? So they said, oh, these are sacred texts. So today we're going to read one which is a little bit complicated, not too complicated, but it kind of shows you how creative and a little bit wild can be. To what extent will the Kabbalist go in order to make a point? And their creativity, I think, has to do with this kind of feeling of awakenedness, right? That their connection, their connectedness to the divine kind of like invokes this passion, this creative energy in them. And part of it, at least to some of them, goes into creative writing or creative interpretation of sacred texts. right? In order to make a point that is also transformative, hopefully, right? So our journey today will begin with the, in fact, to understand, and there's a nice, there's kind of like some kind of a riddle that we have to work through together, and then there'll be a parable, kind of like a little fable that we're going to have to. I'll be curious to know what you make of it and how you understand it, because it can be understood in all sorts of ways. And again, the question that I'll be asking is, how can this text be an advice to us, or as to what can we make of this in order to bring it into our lives? And you'll see what I mean, hopefully, as I progress in this kind of little talk here about this text. So in order to understand how to begin to decipher this text, we have to go to the end, which has a quotation from the book of Proverbs. Okay, it's one of the books in the Bible. And as I've already shared with you, oftentimes what the Zohar does, it will take a verse from the Bible, often from the 5 books of Moses, but in this case it's from Proverbs, which is also okay. And then it will interpret it in a spiritual, Kabbalistic, non-literal sense, all right? So bear with me. And there'll be a little bit of symbolism and divine Kabbalistic math, which I'm glad we have a mathematician in the room, but it's more like arithmetic, and it doesn't make sense from a logical point of view, but I'm glad you're here. Maybe you'll help us as a professional mathematician to make it's really like second grade level math, but you could still help us. It's like way below your pay grade, but it's good that you're in the room. So, it says here, it's not Proverbs, it's Psalms. I'm sorry, it's Psalms 45. My bad. It's from Psalms. All the glory of the king's daughter is within. Her clothing is woven with threads of gold. This is the verse from Psalms. All the glory of the king's daughter is within. Her clothing is woven with threads of gold. So, why, even before we go into this Kabbalistic interpretation of this verse, why would this verse be interesting to mystics and Kabbalists and spiritual seekers and teachers? Yeah?
It at first almost seems like a contradiction that you're saying, oh, the glory of the king's daughter is like within, but her clothing is woven with threads of gold, which gold being a very like just very expensive, like opulent thing is kind of outside the body. So you're saying, oh, the glory is inside, but yet we're like adorning ourselves outside.
Right. So like you're saying, there is already in the verse there is kind of a tension or a juxtaposition or a whatever, right, between inside and outside, because there's a glory that's within, and then there's the outside. So then one might ask, what is the connection between the two halves? Is it even though she's right? Is it because she's right? What is the connection? Like the glory that's within, it's kind of like inwards, outwards. They both have glory. This is gold, and this is some kind of internal glory, whatever that may be. What is the connection? In spite of the fact, because one of them, she get like what? What's the relationship between inside and outside? What else?
When you see the word the king, I immediately think, well, they're referring to God as the king. But then who's this girl, the daughter?
Right. So that's another thing. Are we talking here about a human king and a princess? Right? Or are we talking about, is it a religious, spiritual text? Is it a metaphor, an allusion to the king, right? To the divine and a daughter? What are we talking about here? Right? So there's the question again, and we've seen this metaphor, the king before, right? So what's the relationship between the king and the princess or the daughter of the king? right? And what is the relationship between her inner glory and her outer fancy appearance? Right? So we can see why a mystic, a Kabbalist, someone who wants to, would want to say, oh, this is wonderful material for me to build upon, to start my journey in, right? I can tell you an anecdote. Speaking of the spirit of the Galilee, so as a spirit of the Galilee rabbi in the north of Israel, I often had to go and be in all those panels or conferences or places where all the priests, imams, the Druze sheikhs, whatever of the Galilee would be, and some of them have very fancy attire. So like they have like their mustaches and their fancy hats and robes and crosses that they wear, and then there's like shabby me coming with like I'm like overdressed now to what I would normally wear there, like with my whatever, and so then I learned that actually I have to dress up a little bit for those, because I represent, who cares about Or Zohar, but if I'm a rabbi representing the Jewish faith amongst the Greek Orthodox and the Muslim this and that, and Catholic whatever of diocese of I have to, so and then like the Druze sheikh told me that in their religion they actually have this thing that clergy must wear, always like have clean clothes, respectable clothes, impeccable clothes, because who cares who you are? It's because you are representing something, right? So there's this thing about the way that we wear, and everybody, when you have something important, or if you wear a uniform for a job, or if you're representing something, or your family, or your workplace, or your profession, you would have to look the part, right? So there is a relationship between the inner and the outer, hopefully, right? And there could be also discrepancies, people who look like a mess, but inside they're wonderful, or vice versa. That happens too, right? People who look like they're $1 million, but then, yeah.
Well, then, when they say the king's daughter is within, isn't that not bringing out the feminine aspect that is within a male or all of us? Shekinah, is she not?
Shekhinah.
Right.
Right, so this also, so again, we have this, so a lot of Kabbalah has to do with Kabbalistic symbolism, has to do with gender. Yes, feminine and masculine aspects of both the divine and the human being. And there is the belief that everything and everybody has both to a degree, right? And that, yes, so that could be there as well. Yes, so a lot of the times when the Kabbalists will discuss different aspects of either the divine or the human psyche, they will say masculine, feminine, and the unification of the two of them, not necessarily between two people, although that too can happen, but within the same individual as well, and in the divine realms also. Yes, so the daughter here could very possibly also be referring to the feminine attribute, or one of the feminine attributes of the divine, which is the Shekhinah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
For me, the important part of this is all the glory of the king's daughter is within.
Mm-hmm.
So what that her clothing has threads of gold?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? I mean, what are they saying here, that it symbolizes her glory, or just that she had?
Right. So again, that poses the question. It's a good, which I was going to leave it as a question at this point. Again, what is the relationship between the two parts of the verse? Because some might, speaking of nefesh, ruach, neshama from last week, right, one might say that ideally the within parts, right, or where we can connect it inwards, should also project on our outer, like how we are in the world, right? So I took this yoga course earlier this year, and we're talking about the 8 limb path of yoga, where what people in the West think is yoga, all those stretches, right, is actually only the third out of the 8. And then the 4th one is breathing, pranayama. And then the 5th is going within. And then 6, 7, and 8 are different forms of meditation. But 1 and 2, what are 1 and 2? 1 and 2 are how you conduct yourself towards other ethics and towards yourself. And one of the subdivisions of that is saucha, cleanliness. That you're able to, like, in other words, if your kitchen is a mess and your floor is dirty and your roof is leaking and you're like a mess and you can't conduct yourself in the world, and then you're like doing yoga and you're like meditate, what have you? In other words, they had, one might say that there could be some kind of a, holistic, organic kind of like coming together of your inner self and your outer self. However, another interpretation might be, who cares about her fancy clothing, right? If she, and maybe that's kind of like a criticism of kings and princesses and princes, right? Who cares if you have threads of gold? If you don't have any glory within, you're not worth, like, we ain't buying it, right? So again, that's the beauty of these verses, that you can interpret it in more than one way, right? But it poses a question about inner, outer, the relationship between them. Is it a criticism on royalty who wear fancy clothes but have no integrity or spiritual, clout within? Is it a call? Whatever it is, we can think about it, and we can see why that would call for more interpretation. Yes.
It occurred to me that it may not be inner versus outer, but all one, because it depends how we define clothing and woven and threads and gold. And we can kind of, at first glance, think of that as just clothing and however it's made. But the soul, if we think about our souls, the composition of our souls, it feels to me that second half of the psalm is a reflection of the first part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take it as literally external, but more internal.
So I think your comment might be a good segue into the Kabbalistic interpretation, because like you, they're really zooming in on the word gold, and they were trying to find more meaning there, right? Because why threads, right? Why gold, right? Could it have been silver? Could it have been diamonds? Could it have been, I don't know what, Giorgio Armani? But what's the why gold, right? And maybe there's a secret there, right? And I think that with your comment, with your permission, I'm going to try to go a little bit further into the Kabbalistic interpretation of this verse. Maybe we could just talk for now about the verse. And I'm going to no rush. We can also continue. If we don't finish this week, we'll finish it next week. Don't worry. It's okay to go slow. Okay. So the word for gold in Hebrew is zahav. Like in this song, if you know it, Yerushalayim shel zahav, Jerusalem of gold. Yerushalayim shel zahav. Zahav means gold. For example, there's also a female name, Zehava. Zehava v'shloshet adubim. Zehava and the 3 bears is, the fairy tale about, what's her name in?
Is there really in Hebrew?
What's that?
Is there really one in Hebrew would call that Zehava?
Zehava. What's that? Goldilocks. So Goldilocks is Zehava, okay? Because Zahav means gold, right? So Zahav. So if you read Hebrew, Zayin, Hey, Vet, 3 letters, right here. You see it? This one, Zahav. This is the word in Hebrew. And now you're going to have to bear with me, because you see what the Kabbalists make of this Zahav. Because like you, they're asking, so why Zahav? Why gold? What can we make out of it? Right? And this is just now we're ready to take off. Until now, we've just been like boarding the plane, finding our seats, buckling up, listening to the stewardess saying, now we're actually ready to take off. So here we go. So basically they're saying, all the glory of the king. Oh, it was also on the top. I didn't see that I put it there. That's lovely. All the glory of the king's daughter is within. Her clothing is woven with threads of gold. And why is its name called gold, Zahav? Because in it are included 3 measures. The Zayin, the first letter, symbolizes 7 attributes. The Hey, 5 final units. The Bet, Chokhmah, wisdom, and Bina, understanding. And this soul is called by this name, gold, Zahav, because of the Atzilut emanation, the 7 lower Sefirot, and the 5 names of the soul. So what did they do? Yeah, what's that?
Where does wisdom come from? That
Great question. And where does Bina also come from? Where does wisdom and understanding come from? How the heck is that related to the letter Bet?
Yeah.
But why aren't you asking about the Hey and the Zayin? Right? Like, what's that? So, in order to decipher this little paragraph here, there's a couple things we need to know. We'll try to go step by step. Number 1 is that in Hebrew, there's also a numeric value to each letter. And in the old times, when the Jews would count, they would not count with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They would actually count with the letters of the alphabet. It took a while for us to pick up on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, we had numbers actually from Genesis. It's not true, but it's untrue. They were numbers, but additionally, there's numeric value to each letter. So the way that it works is that the first 10 letters of the alphabet are 1 to 10. So Aleph, like A, would be 1, Bet, B would be 2. Then when you get to the 10th letter, which is Yud, it becomes 10. But then letter number 11 becomes 20. And letter number 12 becomes 30. So for example, if you want to say 11, you would say Yud Aleph. You take the 10th letter and the first letter. If you want to say 12, you'll say take Yud and Bet. See what I mean? So, and then it goes to the hundreds. So in other words, so every number you can also give it a numeric. Sorry, every letter has a numeric value, and then therefore every word also has a numeric value, right? Because the sum of all the letters of that word will have a numeric value. But here it doesn't go as complicated as that. What they're doing is, first of all, is that they're just saying, according to the numeric value of each of those 3 letters, it symbolizes something. And Kabbalists make a lot of interpretation, a lot of text based upon these numeric values. For example, bless you, if two words have the same numeric value, they might say there's a hidden connection, right? And people sometimes scoff at it because they say, what is this? This is like pseudoscience. Like, you want to prove this? No, but people need to understand that it's actually more like creative arts rather than a science. And the understanding beyond it is that Hebrew is a sacred language, and that it radiates with revelation, so that everything is meaningful. It's also a state of mind of the Kabbalist. Oh, I make connections. I wire my brain around about different things. So one way, if a text talks to me, it can talk to me through the literal meaning. It can talk to me through the numeric value of letters. It can talk to me through the shapes of the letters. And sometimes they make, everything is divine revelation, kind of like an artist right, would also notice those things in the world. You see what I mean? So it's more about creativity and finding multi-layers of meanings in a text, and also wiring to one another things that normally you wouldn't, rather than saying, oh, it's a scientific because this word is 43 and this one is 43, that means that there's a sign. It's not like that. It's more like, let's be more fluid and creative in how we approach language and meaning and conveying things that are subtle, a little bit like poetry, or a little bit like how an artist would paint or a musician would compose, like that. Okay? So, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav, Zayin. Zayin, the first letter of Zahav, is 7. The second letter, Hey, is 5. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey. And the last one is Bet. So each one of those will come to describe 3 different things. One of them something of 7, some of them something of 5, and some of them something of 2. Now, what are those things? Okay, so you're good until now. Everybody's with me. The word zahav. So we start. So again, let's back this. We started. Well, we were born. We came here. We're sitting here. We're studying, right? We started with a verse from Psalms that depicts. There's the princess, the Bat Melech, the daughter of the king, who has glory from within and has garments with threads of gold, right? And then we're Kabbalists. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna zoom in on one word and meditate upon it. Think about also this ability to zoom on one word and then zoom in on the letters. See? So the medium is the message here. We are zooming in and we're saying we're gonna just like we can do this nowadays, right? We can make it bigger and bigger until all we see that is that 3-letter word, Zahav, Zayin Hey Vet, and then a world appears, like a doorway opens, and the Kabbalists see something that no one has seen before. So what are those 7, 5, and 2? And this will come back to your question about Chokhmah and Bina and all that. The 7 symbolize the 7 attributes. 7 attributes. 7 attributes out of 10. So another thing you need to know in order to understand this text, and this is just in a nutshell because this is a whole other lecture series, which we're going to have to do sometime. According to anyone of you ever seen this thing before? Raise your hand if you've seen it. And that's because I want to know culturally. The tree of life. So this is the Kabbalistic tree of life. According to the Kabbalistic understanding of the divine, of the world, of the human psyche, of our existence, even though God is one, and God is one, there's a unity of God, of the world, of the human being, of everything. God is being perceived in this world, especially to our psyche, to our human experience, as 10 different attributes. In this diagram, by the way, there are 11 because after a while, some later Kabbalists added an 11th one, this one in the middle, which is actually the one that perceives all the 10. But never mind that, all right? Actually, there's 11 in the diagram, but traditionally, actually, there are 10. Never mind that there's 11. I actually don't like that, but that's a whole other lecture. In the original like Zohar Kabbalah, there's only, I just couldn't find one online that didn't have the middle one. But for the sake of this, there's 3 and 7. Ignore this one, the 11th one. You see, it's also gray because it's not exactly a separate sephira. So now, we can talk a lot about these 10 emanations and what does it mean, okay? One of the ways that they are divided between them is that the higher 3 are considered to be very, very sublime and kind of like hidden and more in the divine realm, unreachable by humans, only that in the end they are also reachable because how can we know about them, right? And then the 7 lower ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are ones that are being revealed and experienced in each and every human soul. Coming back to the topic of our class. And by the way, if you think about, if you know anything about Indian kind of yoga and tradition, like they talk about the 7 chakras and the number 7 that is holy in Judaism. For example, today I had one and I'm going to have one after this class. 2 separate conversations with 2 couples who are getting married, and they both asked me this and will ask me the same question: why are there 7 blessings in the wedding? Why does the bride and groom go 7 times around one another? Why are there so many ceremonies that have to do with 7? If you go to the mikveh and you immerse in water, there are 7 steps that go into the mikveh. We saw that today, right, Fred? Yeah. Many things in Judaism have to do with 7. The 7 days of the week. I can go on and on. Why? One of the answers, or the Kabbalistic answer, would be because each and every human soul, when it comes into the world, those 7 lower rungs or emanations of the divine, they are being born, created in each and every one of us. And the 3 higher ones, but they're like in the back, and that's kind of like more like where these 7 come from. And so it's kind of like more abstract and concealed. So when they talk about the letter Zayin in Zahav, remember? They say 7 emanations, these are the ones that they mean. Okay, the 7 divine rungs or emanations that are manifested in each and every individual soul. All right, you with me? Okay. Now, hey, the 5 final units. One way to think about it, that there would be the 5 lower ones, but actually, as you'll see, what they actually mean is they have to do with the 5 parts or levels of the human soul. Now, if you were here last week, how many parts of the soul did we learn about last week? 3. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Here in this text, you see it says that the soul is called, there's 7, right? And then the 7 lower sefirot and the 5 names of the soul. So if last week we said that there are 3 parts of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, why now, all of a sudden, we're contradicting ourselves that there are 5? Well, in Kabbalah, all is possible. 3 can be 5. So, and then we're going to have to get to your bet soon. Yeah?
What happened to Neshama of Neshama?
What's that? Yes, there were 4, right? So there you saw, yes, exactly. So as we learned in the first class, in the early biblical and Talmudic levels of Jewish culture, no one was talking about different distinct parts of the soul. Later on, there were philosophers who came, there were influences from other traditions. People started to be more self-conscious. Oh, but we have this, we have the mind, and we have the heart, and we have the body, and can we be a little more scientific, yeah, and maybe more self-conscious about what is the soul. And then in Kabbalah, actually from the book of Zohar, which is maybe 12th century, maybe a little bit before that, but around 11th, 12th, 13th century, we start to have a lot of texts, and not just in Zohar, but in related texts from those about 1,000 years ago. All of a sudden, they start to say there's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, the 3 parts, which roughly speaking mean the part of the soul that is in charge of the body and its actions in the world, how we conduct ourselves physically in the physical realm, that would be Nefesh. Ruach, which is intellectual, maybe also intuitive, maybe a little bit of the emotional, like our inner consciousness, Ruach. And then the soul, which would be our connection to the divine. And even in the text that, like you said, thank you for bringing it up, even in the text that you read last week, they're like, it's not enough because, okay, but what about the part of the divine that is reaching us? The Neshama of Neshama is also part of us because we can experience it, right? So the 3 already become 4-ish, still have the same name. And along these lines, in later strata of Kabbalah. Mostly in Lurianic Kabbalah, which is 15th, 16th century, they felt, after having meditated on it a lot, that really that part which is Neshama, which is the highest divine one, there are nuances within it. So they added Chaya and Yechida to be nuances within the Neshama. So roughly speaking, there are 3, but more precisely, there are 5, they said. And it evolved with time, right? Just like a scientist can say, yeah, but then we discovered that there's make the thing more complicated, or the theory more complicated. Possibly. I'm not a scientist, I have no idea really, but it's just what I think the scientists want. So, okay, so here's actually a text from the Zohar, which unusually to the Zohar actually speaks of 5, which makes me suspicious that maybe this text is a later addition, because the Zohar, as I told you before, not the academic in me speaking. Because the Zohar, which was written, it was manuscripts, and people copied and added and copied and added. So I wouldn't be surprised if this particular Zoharic text is actually from a very much later period of the Zohar. See what I mean? Because it's talking about 5. Or it's the most ancient source that we have in the Zohar to the later Kabbalists, whatever. But we're getting somewhere, because we already understand that Zion would be the 7 lower emanations of the soul, of the divine soul that are manifested in each and every soul, the divine ones though. So the 7 would be from God. And the 5, they're the 5 parts of the human neshama, the human soul, Zion and Hey. And then there's a 3rd letter, Bet. What are we going to do with the letter Bet? Bet is the 2nd letter, 2, 1, 2. And they're saying that is Chokhmah and Bina. Those 2 emanations that are the part of the 3rd mysterious triad that's at the top of the tree of life, the one that is not so much manifested into human experience, the one that is concealed and remains within the divine realm. It's like the mothership without the ladder, it's like the flying saucer without the stairs. It remains hovering up there. So now, instead of seeing Zahav, gold, they're seeing 3 letters, each one of them representing a different part in the relation between the divine and the human. Chokhmah and Binah, this is to answer to your question, right? It took a long time, but I didn't forget the question. I had a very roundabout way to go to get to it, but that's the answer. Chokhmah and Binah, again, without getting too much into what they mean. If you wish, there are two kinds of very abstract contemplation, meditation. Maybe not unlike the higher realm of the yoga thing that I taught you about. It's just nuanced meditation. Chokhmah and Bina would be contemplation on the very abstract divine realm. What about the highest one, Keter, the Aleph, the one that it's not in? Why aren't they mentioning it? Because Zahav, they have what about the 3rd one, the highest one, this one? It's not mentioned for 2 reasons. One, there's no letters left for them. Sorry, no letters left here, right? 2, maybe they don't mention it because it's so concealed. We're not even going to mention it. You have to figure it out on your own, right? So in fact, what they have is the letter Bet, the last letter, representing the higher realm, which is completely within the divine realm, contemplative, concealed, unexperienced by the human souls, almost never. The Zion would be 7, which is the lower 7 rungs that are the divine emanations that are manifested in every human journey of the soul whenever we're born. And the Hey would be the 5 parts of the human soul. So we kind of have Zahav becomes a ladder, right? Our soul, 5, the 7 divine attributes that are manifested within us, and above it, Chokhmah and Binah, and don't talk about Keter, because it's only silence, all the way to the most divine and abstract. Zoom into the word Zahav, take every letter, calculate its numeric value, and here we go. Welcome to Kabbalah. Yeah.
70 names of God?
70.
70?
Yeah.
That's 7 times 5 times 2.
7 times 5 times 2. Bingo, you got it. Yeah, so there's probably more to it. And Zahav altogether means 14, which we can also think about why that, and double times 7, and there's a lot of symbolism in it. And we can go on, and if we have mathematicians in the room, woohoo, right? So, by the way, their entire schools of Kabbalah that all they do is meditate on those things, and they kind of like have like really sophisticated meditation with math and different things, and that's a whole other sect of Kabbalah that we can talk about some other time. But that would get them into ecstatic states of being, because it would kind of like go in their minds and flip words that have the same numeric value and crazy stuff that's going on. But that's for another time and another teacher probably. But yes, that exists too. So go on, take it further. Become a mathematician Kabbalist. Yes, and they're flying. They're flying both on the literal and the poetic, and also the mathematical. It's kind of like right hemisphere, left hemisphere brain intertwined, and also a little strange. But yeah.
Have they also taken this a bit further into music?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So see what we have here is a text. What you don't have is the entire school of Kabbalists or their whatever, where they were sitting in the Middle Ages. And obviously they were chanting trope, and they were praying, and they had music, and they had poetry, and they had ways to chant the prayers and like we do today, right? Why did you ever ask yourself why trope is so important to us? Why we teach that to bar bat mitzvah, bnei mitzvah kids? Like a very exact ways, yes. And meter and rhyme and music, and in fact, they come from there. This is a Spanish text, and they're all Sephardi Jews. And this is also a whole other lecture. But thank you for bringing it up.
The various
No,
pitches.
yes. So yes, there is 7 notes, but in Arabic Middle Eastern music, and by the way, if you come to hear Father Abuna Saba Hajj, the guy I was telling you about from Israel, he sings. It's like Gregorian chant, but it's the Arabic version of that. So it has like the microtones of Arabic music, and they're the oldest form of the church that existed. He was ordained in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the old city in Jerusalem. And I don't know if you know about the schism in the church and the Roman. This is like the ancient Eastern Church. He goes to a monastery in the Judea desert. It's called Saba, Marsaba, like his name, where it's the oldest Christian monastery that has existed continuously in the world. So they've had, because they're more ancient monasteries, but then they were deserted, and the one where they've had constant monks in the Christian faith, dating all the way back to like the 4th century, whatnot, with traditions, with also esoteric traditions that they teach to one another. Okay, and he's of that lineage. And if you hear his music, it's very profound. Just for this, come to the lecture, because it's very, and in the Sephardi Jewish world, they also have, in Western music, we have mostly like minor key, major key, and some modices. Those of you musicians, you know what I'm talking about. In the Sephardi, Arabic, Middle Eastern world, there are numerous scales with microtones. And in fact, so for the Jews, for every Saturday of the year, there's 52 weeks more or less, they have a different scale that they use. And for every time of the year, it's all very, very complicated and beautiful. So yes, and the Kabbalists are part of this, and a lot of the, so in other words, yes, this world does not just remain the textual. We have texts, but it has music, it has art. Kabbalists would meditate upon, they're actually diagrams that are much more intricate than this. There are manuscripts from the Middle Ages with crazy Kabbalistic drawings and visions and colors. They would meditate on colors because each emanation would have not one color, but colors. It's a little more complicated than just this one is yellow, this one is red, but basically, so there's a lot of experience, so there's sound and there's color to this, and there's art to it, and there's text, and there's imagination. And in the end, it's only a different human ways to express the connection to the divine. That's it. In the end, it's all very simple. It's complicated, but it's also it's like 1,000 different ways to say the same thing over and over again. Awaken your soul to God. Live a conscious life. From this, act in the world with goodness, with kindness. It's really not all that complicated, but they make it complicated because it's nice to go around to always get home, but through another door or window. Okay. So, what do we have so far? We have the divine realm with the Chokhmah and Bina, Bet, right, hovering above. We have the seven emanations, the divine emanation that appear in the world and is manifested to each and every one of us. And then there's the 5 parts of the soul. Never mind now the details. What is the 7? What is the 5? We can get to that later, next year, whatever. But just take it as that from that, okay? And then let's go on in the text. And already, what time is it now? Yeah, so there may be time to, we're gonna have to complete this this is fine, right? So.
Save that, Derek.
Yeah, exactly. So the Zayin symbolizes 7 attitudes. The Hey, 5 final units. The Bet, Chokhmah and Bina, understanding. And this soul is called by this name, gold, because of the Atzilut. This means emanation, the 7 lowest Sefirot, and the 5 names of the soul, which are Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and then the other 2, Chaya, and Yechidah, which really are nuances within the Neshama. Now, what is the function of the letter Hey? It is a throne for the Zayin. So our soul is a throne to the divine. See, we've heard that idea before, right, in another text. As it is written in Ecclesiastes, for one higher than the high watches, and there are higher ones above them. Okay, they're using a verse from Ecclesiastes who say there are levels here, right? There's one that watches over the other, and the one above. In other words, there is a hierarchy.
Like the tree of life thing? Like you said, the ones above, we're not gonna pay attention to.
Right. But then also here they mean that below the tree of life, our soul, the five, think about it as a flower with like petals, right? And there's like this, what are those? Like let's say you have a flower, then you have those green other leaves, but what do you call them? Let's say
The stem.
there's a stem, and then like a flower would have like
The sepals.
the sepals.
Yeah.
And then what do you call the one, so they're like part of the stem and they're green,
Yeah, underneath and then the petals.
and then the petals. And what's sepals?
Yeah,
So think about a flower with 5 sepals and 7 petals. One is a throne to the other. So again, this idea that the human soul, including its very physical bodily attributes and its emotional and everything that we are in this life, is a throne to the divine emanations that are 7 and 10, because there's also the 3 above that are more concealed. So again, not that our soul, our human existence is separate from the divine. It is a throne to the divine. It's all moving together. Right? Now, because we're not going to go into the parable this time, because I want to respect it and give it more time, and we're really not in a rush. Bringing this back to the threads of gold, the glory that's within. How might we understand this now? And we're only halfway through because we didn't get to the parable, which is fine. Let's give it 7 minutes now. Where do you find it so far? How does this text find it? Anyone? And it's kind of like half baked because we didn't get to the other part, but yes.
When I first read it, I kind of read the first line, all the glory of the king's daughter is within. I kind of put a you at the end, like it's within you. And so reading the second line, like the king's daughter is already there inside of you, and her threads are, her clothing is woven with threads of gold, and then gold being all the different parts of the soul, everything else that we talked about, that it's holding each other together. That's already in you. Like you just have to look.
So in other words, the gold, the source of the gold, right? If I now want to sell you a garment made of threads of gold, where do I get my magic gold threads from? Right, so one way would be, oh, it's actual gold, it's physical gold. Your interpretation, if I understand correctly, that gold, the garment of gold, the threads of gold, is not actual gold. It's when you make this divine connection, when you connect to your inner glory, when you connect to those inner resources that are within you, you can weave your physical existence from threads of gold that are made of the inner you.
Yeah, and even connecting it to the aspect of clothing, that it's something that can be created if you just know how to utilize that.
Mhm.
Like it's already there.
Right, so I like what you're saying also, that it's not something that is outside of me. And I think that is something that is very, very, I agree with you. In this kind of spirituality, it's that divine, that gold, that secret ingredient is not external to me. It is something that that I have in me. If I go within and I learn about this glory and I wear it, it will reflect on my garment or on my outer life. Yeah. Anyone else?
I sort of like to reverse sentences.
Can you speak up though? So,
I like to reverse the sentences. Her clothing is woven with threads of gold, but all the glory of the king's daughter is within.
mhm.
In spite of the fact that she is rich and is wearing this, she is going to be fooled by the outside.
Yeah. So that's like we said previously, it's a very possible interpretation, because again, what's the connection between inside and outside? So it could be that her clothing really is gold. And I think there were Christian sects in this country, like the Puritans, right, who believe that your virtue is something that is true. Tell me if someone told me that once, that some Christian founder of this country, it's like, if it has to do with capitalism and the fact that if you're wealthy, it means that God loves you.
Those are the Presbyterians.
The Presbyterians?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so there's kind of like a correlation. If you're wealthy if you're successful in the physical realm, it means that you're loved by God, that you're spiritual. There's something like that. I don't want to speak for them because I shouldn't misrepresent them, right? So there's different understanding in the world about in and out, right? But again, if we listen to our friend over here, it also might be possible that the gold is not actual gold at all. In fact, I have something to say about that, but I want to hear you first.
I was gonna say, if we're taking gold to be all of these parts of the emanations of God and the soul, so the unseen things, basically, in the world, it's saying the clothing, which is a surface thing, an appearances thing, is woven with these things that are within, that are kind of unseen.
Mhm.
And I find that to feel contradicting in an interesting way, that the unseen things weave into this thing that's about appearances.
Right, so how are the things that are unseen, or the things that are hidden or concealed or are within, how do they become our garments of gold, our garments of light? Right, and one interpretation that is possible, think about a garment that is made of like what do you call this, a quilt, okay? The stitches are made with these threads of gold. What if the threads of gold are the cracks, are the broken parts? right? What if this is actually a garment that is like a life that has been like we've been cracked and shattered, and what you actually see is the light that comes through the crack of a broken soul that has humility.
Yeah, but quilt
Right.
threads sew pieces, all the layers together.
Mm. Well,
I feel like, isn't there a Japanese, like, it's a pottery that's
Yeah.
broken,
Mhm.
repaired? or
Yeah.
something,
Yes.
so, like, if-
that metaphor.
If
So-
the garment
Yeah.
is torn or something, you're repairing it with the thread.
Or
or-
pottery.
So again, I have to apologize because I never made a quilt, so if the metaphor doesn't cross, my apology to the mathematicians, to the Japanese artists, to the quilt artists. Again, Maimonides said once, when you make a parable, that it'll never be 100%. Like, don't get caught in the details because we're trying to make a point, right? And the point is that what if those threads are actually the seams, the place where there was a crack, and what you can actually see is the golden inside, which is what's in other words, a broken soul can be very glorious because we can actually see through. Lo and behold, it's beautiful from within. What's actually holding this thing? It's the garment is not a physical garment, and the gold is not physical gold. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, the crown chakra is gold on the picture. I don't know if it typically is, but all crowns are also a lot that's made of gold. But of all the glory of the king's daughter within, and that is like the most hidden part, potentially the part that's not mentioned in the gold. The gold is everything else. It also stands that it's woven with threads of gold, which are like little bits of that crown that are kind of showing through, but also clothing is something that's labor intensive. It's something that you have to do actions to create and maintain. And also it doesn't say anything about what would be happening if you didn't wear clothes, but it does kind of imply that like on your own, without any of those actions, without any work, there isn't necessarily display of glory either. And so if you do the work of putting on clothes or adorning yourself, that's doing actions is a way that the inner can show outward.
Beautiful. I also want to thank you for just a minute. I just want to thank you for bringing out the metaphor of the clothes here, making it a little thicker, I guess, thicker fabric, right? Hey, we're now approaching the holiday. Well, there's Tu B'Shvat, but then there's going to be Purim in about a month and a half, where we're recording in Judaism. We wear costumes, right? And one of the spiritual meanings of Purim, which that's a whole other lecture, but why is Purim one of the most important and holiest all the holidays, even though it's basically a carnival where we wear costumes and drink and party, right? Because the parable of Purim is that this life, this is a costume. This body is a costume, right? Everything is a costume. My profession is a costume. My family is a costume. Speaking of gender, speaking of roles in society, right? It's all costumes. What's not a costume? If you go inside, right? So in a sense, like taking the metaphor of the garments here, right? What is not a garment? Take away all my clothes.
The soul.
Take away my body. Take away my memory. Take away my thoughts. Take away my identity. Take away my name. Take away everything. What is not a costume? How much inside do I have to go? And I'm not talking about now actual clothes, and I'm not talking about, right? I'm going deeper. How deep do I have to go in order to not be in the garments? What is the actual, and if you think about that, it's actually, to me, profound. Going within. If I want to go to the deepest of the deep, right? So according to this teaching, right, to find that gold, we already know it's not physical gold. We already know it's not a material. We already know it's not actually the garments, right? How deep inside do I have to go in order to find that gold? It's not my name. It's not my age. It's not my sex. It's not my memories. It's not my childhood. It's not my religion. What is it? What is it? Well, yes, right? That light, that zahav, that gold, right? And the direction to which this text sends us, which if you read it in a way, it's radical. If I want, not what I usually, I'm a this and that, I'm a scientist, I'm a rabbi, I don't know, engineer, I'm a multi-billionaire, I'm a teacher, I'm a whatever, a baker, whatever I am. I'm a family man. I'm an American. I don't know what is that thing that makes me with gold in the appear? No, this text will say this is none of these. Go deeper. Who am I? I am gold, not me personally. Everyone, see what I mean? And then all of the glory to them is the connection to that which is within. Nonetheless, the garments are not unimportant in this. It is not a spirituality that says, oh, the heck with identity, the heck with what we do. In that way, it's not a nihilist teaching, if you know what I'm saying. It's the garments are very important, but remember what they're made of really, and what makes them. Again, it's also aligned with the metaphor of the throne, right? Our physical reality, our psyche, our everything that I said now are not the gold. They're not unimportant. They are the throne. Without that, the gold has nowhere to be. Right? So it's kind of like this, again, we reach this mysterious connection between the realms. And we're going to read the parable next week, God willing. I learned from the Muslims. You have to say, Inshallah, Bezrat Hashem, God willing. You're not. They taught me that Muhammad got punished by God because he said, I will meet you in like 3 days' time or something like that. And he didn't say Inshallah, he didn't say God willing, and he got in trouble. If Prophet Muhammad, may he rest in peace, got in trouble, who am I to not say Inshallah, Bezrat Hashem, God willing. God willing next week. Who knows what's going to happen in a week? We're going to be reading the fable, right? But even the first half of the text, again, these texts are not math, they're not science. They're supposed to awaken us to some kind of consciousness that we don't always remember to be awakened to. Right? And if you come to these classes, and very natural so, you're a bit tired and a bit this, and I've had a long day, so did I, and my day isn't even over yet. I actually have a Zoom meeting in, what time is it now? Oh, I had a Zoom meeting, have to go, bye. Just to say that, okay, so, yeah, I have to go. We'll continue next week. I have a Zoom meeting at 8:30, started. Thank you. Hopefully, we got a little bit into this, and we'll end next week with a parable and with some summaries. Take care. Bye-bye.